Hey everyone, it is Natalie and I am so excited to bring you my best books of 2019. I'm way more excited about filming this video than I was about filming the worst books of 2019 because I don't have to worry about hurting other people's feelings. Don't get me wrong, it's been so much fun watching all these best of and worst of. I think it's almost funny when you watch a worst of video and somebody puts as one of the worst books of all time a book that you absolutely adored and you're just sitting there going, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? That book is amazing. But that's not what we're here to do today. We're here to talk about the best book. So no hurt feelings. And you might just look at me and be like, really? I didn't think that was so great. But let's just go ahead and get started. So stay tuned. Now, some of you who watch this channel regularly might be thinking, I'm pretty sure I know exactly which book she's going to hold up. And guess what? You might be wrong. Because I made a list of all my 4- and 5-star books throughout the year. And it was kind of surprising to me that a lot of the 5-star books aren't really 5-star books anymore. I look back and I'm like, I don't even really remember what it was about. And then some of those 4-star books are just still with me. So I do think you sometimes need some time and distance to really know how a book, what you really think of a book. And of course, whatever you read before affects how you feel about a book. Whatever is going on in your personal life or how you're doing physically, if you're not feeling well, if you're sick, all of those things affect how you feel about a book. So it was really hard to narrow this list down. I narrowed it down to 12, and then I have 4 honorable mentions. I didn't rank these because that was too hard. Those of you who rank your books, I think you're awesome that you can do that. I'm sorry guys, I couldn't do that, but I could narrow it down to 12 and give you 4 honorable mentions. So let's start with the honorable mentions, shall we? Okay, my first honorable mention would be The Night Tiger. This was one of my Reese Witherspoon book club books. This is a historical fiction / magical realism, I guess would be the best description. It is set in 1930s colonial Malaysia and it's got 2 main characters. The first character is a young woman named Ji Lin. She's an apprentice dressmaker, but she also has to moonlight as a dance hall dancer, which I guess when I read the book, it's just you have to dance with people. It's nothing, dirty. But she has to do that because she has to pay off her mother's gambling debts that her stepfather doesn't know about. And then we have a second main character, a little houseboy named Ren, who's in a predicament that his master was dying, and on his deathbed he said, you need to go find my lost finger. If you don't find it within 40 days, then I'm going to be forced to roam the earth aimlessly forever. I mean, a lot of pressure to put on a kid, right? And meanwhile, in this community that they both live in, there's all these weird, mysterious deaths and rumors of men turning into tigers. And we also have people who are visiting each other in their dreams in a way to kind of sort all of this out. And I really enjoyed this book. It was very different from anything else that I read. I think the cover is beautiful. Not that that should matter, but it does. And I just highly recommend it. This was a really great read. It almost made the top 12. In fact, I think at one point it was in the top 12, but definitely worth your time. The Night Tiger. My next honorable mention is The Tuscan Child. This is a historical fiction. This one is told in 2 different timelines. In our first timeline, we have a main character named Hugo. He's a British pilot in the 1940s who has to parachute out of his plane because I guess it's crashing. And he ends up parachuting into Nazi-occupied Tuscany. And he has to hide out in this abandoned monastery to survive. Luckily for him, a woman named Sophia finds him and is willing to help him, get what he needs so he doesn't die. And then we have a second timeline in the 1970s, and it's his daughter who's the main character this time. Her name is Joanna, and she is returning to her English countryside home. Her father's passed away. She has to, take care of his affairs. And when she's doing that, she stumbles across an unopened, returned envelope with a letter inside. And so when she opens it up, it's a letter to a woman named Sophia, and it has some very startling revelations in it. So startling that she decides that she needs to go to Tuscany to figure out this mystery that this letter has brought. and she really just wants to find out what happened to her father there, what this letter is talking about. And it's very important to her also because her father and her were not close. They were estranged many, many times, and they had a really hard time understanding each other. So in a way, she's also just trying to understand her father a little bit better. And it's just a wonderful book. And as I was reading it, it just had so many great characters. And at the end, I was just like, oh, it just had such a joyful, happy ending. Not that I'm giving anything away, but you know those endings that just warm your heart. So I highly recommend The Tuscan Child. My third honorable mention, I know we're still in honorable mentions, is Brightly Burning by Alexa Donne. This is a Jane Eyre retelling in outer space. It's also kind of dystopian because at this time the Earth has frozen, and so the surviving humans are in spaceships around Earth, basically waiting for the Earth to be survivable again or inhabitable again. And among these ships, you have the really nice luxury ships where the high class people are, and then you have junkier, not so nice ships where they have to ration things out, where the kind of lower class people are. And our main character is Stella, and she goes from being on one of the junkie ships to being hired as a governess on one of the very fancy ships. And she really enjoys the job. She really enjoys the people on the ship. It's a very small ship, but there's just weird things happening. She's hearing weird noises and weird sounds. There's weird things happening to the crew where people are almost, having near, almost dying, like a fire will break out when a fire shouldn't break out. Just weird stuff. And she starts to think maybe this ship is haunted. Now, what was interesting is I was halfway through this book before I knew the story of Jane Eyre. I've never read Jane Eyre. I've never watched a movie about Jane Eyre. I know, horrible, right? But my mother is a huge Jane Eyre fan, and I was reading this when I think I went down to visit her, and I was telling her it was a Jane Eyre retelling, so she quickly told me what Jane Eyre was about. So it made it really interesting to read the first half, because this is definitely a standalone. I mean, I would have enjoyed this book if I had not heard about Jane Eyre, but then hearing what Jane Eyre was about and then seeing how Alexa Donne put that in an outer space setting was really cool. So that is why it is definitely an honorable mention and definitely worth your time. And my last honorable mention, I know, who has 4 honorable mentions? I know I wanted to do 3, but I couldn't figure out which one to cut, so we're stuck with 4. And my 4th honorable mention is The Dead Queen's Club, which is a book I read at the very beginning of the year. This is kind of a retelling of Henry VIII's life with his 6 wives, but they've taken the scenario and put it in a modern day high school. So Henry is the most popular boy in school, and he ends up having 6 girlfriends, and like his wives, there are 2 of them die. 2 of his girlfriends die, and it's kind of a mystery. And our main character is Cleves, who represents his 4th wife, and Henry VIII's real life. His 4th wife, after they divorced or split or whatever, had a very amicable, friendly relationship. In fact, I think she was referred to as the king's sister because they were such close friends. So in the book, Cleves, which is like a nickname because I think she's from Cleveland, Cleves and Henry are very, very close friends. But as she's watching all of this unfold and she's watching, his relationships, she knows something is kind of off. So this is kind of like it kind of has a mystery thriller element to it for sure, but it's also, I guess, would be kind of a contemporary. I'd be like, why a contemporary / mystery thriller? And also because my mother is such a huge, she just loves English history or, the royal family history. I grew up hearing about Henry VIII and watching I don't know how many Henry VIII movies. So I was very knowledgeable about Henry VIII and his 6 wives. And that made this book all the more fun. Now, it can stand alone. You might be like, I don't want to read about Henry VIII. I just know he had some wives and he cut some heads off. And that's fine, and you can still read this book and have a blast, but knowing as much as I did, and because Hannah Capin is someone that I know personally, she lives here in Virginia, she teaches at the Writing Center, knowing how specific she went in with some of the details that only people who really had studied Henry VIII's history would know was just, like the icing on the cake. It was wonderful, so highly recommend this one as well. All right, before I jump into the actual 12 best books of 2019 for me, I always do this at the end, and I'm starting to remember, no, you need to do it earlier. Please follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's down in the description, and I promise I will follow you right back. All right, guys ready? Let's get into the books. And like I said before, these are in no particular order. But we are going to get the most obvious one out of the way, and that would be The Diviners. And yes, in this list, there are 2 books that are really technically trilogies or series that I'm just counting as one book because it's the whole story that I like. So The Diviners, and then I read Lair of Dreams, which was the 2nd book, and I read Before the Devil Breaks You, which is the 3rd book, and the 4th book, I think it's King of Crows, comes out in a couple of months. But if you're not familiar with it, The Diviners is the 1st book really focuses on the main character, Evie, who has to go live in New York City in the 1920s, which let me tell you, it was so much fun to be in a book where you're in 1920s New York with the flappers and the speakeasies. So cool. But she has to move from her small town because she has a magical gift where she can touch things and sense things, and she kind of accidentally shows off her gifts. So her parents are like, we got to get you out of here. And they send her to New York, and her uncle that she goes and lives with has a museum that's of like cultish items, and so it's a perfect fit for her. And then as we move through the books, she meets other diviners who have different kinds of powers. When we get into Lair of Dreams, we're dealing with a sleeping sickness that's a kind of a magical sleeping sickness that's affecting New York, and so we have some diviners who can go into people's dreams to help solve that problem. Then when we get into Before the Devil Breaks You, the diviners end up spending time in an insane asylum that's having all these kind of paranormal things happen, and they're investigating. And we also start to find some origin. Why are there diviners in the first place? And it turns out they didn't just happen. There is a reason there are diviners. And so I think we're going to get all the final answers in the 4th book. But I highly recommend this series. Definitely, maybe it was my favorite. In fact, I will go out there and say that this is my favorite books of the year were The Diviners. I cannot think of anything I could recommend more. If you only read one book from this whole video, go check out The Diviners. Well, that's not one book. If you're only going to read 4 books from this video, check out the Diviner series. All right, the next book I would like to share as one of my favorite books is The Broken Girls. I don't have a physical copy. I have lent that out, which I was happy to do. I started this channel because I knew nobody else who read, so anytime somebody wants to borrow a book, I'm so excited. And this is the only book that early on when I started my channel, I actually did a whole video about, and I'll link that in the description. And I always describe this book as a mystery thriller with a lot of heart. This is another book that has 2 separate timelines. We have one timeline where we're in the 1950s and we're at a boarding school with 4 girls who become very, very close, but they all start seeing on their own, not together, they all start seeing this ghost on campus, and they're talking about the fact that they've all seen this strange ghost on campus. And then unfortunately, one of the girls disappears, and that's, very unfortunate. And then we have a timeline set in 2014 where our main character is Fiona, whose sister was killed and her body was found on the grounds of the school in the 90s. Now this school shut down, if I'm remembering correctly, I want to say not too long after that girl from the 1950s vanished. It's been shut down for quite some time, and definitely by the time her sister's body is found on the abandoned grounds. And then we also find out that at the turn of the century at some point there was a girl who vanished on those grounds. And Fiona is an investigative journalist, and she's really trying to find out what is going on, what has happened, because we've had 3 girls either vanish or, are killed. And if you look at the time span, that's almost 100 years. It's obviously not the same person, and something is going on these school grounds. And she needs to act fast because she has gotten word that they are planning to reopen this school. And she's thinking, that's probably not a good idea until we figure out what's going on. But this, I love when I have a good mystery thriller that, keeps you just so excited and you can't stop turning the page, but yet also has an ending that warms your heart the way this one did. This is a very special book. Please, please, please read it. All right, my next entry in the best books of 2019 would be the Renegades Trilogy. You guys should have seen this one coming. I started off the year pretty early reading Renegades and Arch Enemies, and then I had to wait until November to finally get the concluding chapter, Supernova. Now, this is technically a book about superheroes, but I've said many, many times, even if you're not into superheroes or you're thinking, I don't like the Marvel movies or the DC movies, maybe it's not for me. I'm telling you, you don't have to like those kind of movies to enjoy this book. Now, if you do like the Marvel movies, and I happen to enjoy the Marvel movies, you will also like this. So I guess what I'm saying is everybody will like this. So the whole idea of the Renegades trilogy is that superheroes have come to power and they've kind of had a fight between the renegades and the anarchists. And the way the politics are, the renegades are the good guys who run everything and the anarchists are the bad guys who are starting trouble. But this book really explores the fact that not any group is all good or any group is all bad. And our main character is Nova, and she's actually part of the anarchists, and she's very angry because the renegades, when she was a child, were supposed to be protecting her family, and they did not. And she had to watch her whole family die in front of her, and she was saved by the anarchists. She becomes a very powerful member of the anarchists. She has the ability to just touch somebody and make them go into a dead sleep, and she also has the power of not needing to sleep. So starting in book 1, she goes in as a mole and undercover as a renegade to kind of take them down. And of course, when she gets in there and she makes friends, she's very torn on what she should do, even though she does, for the most part, try to get the job done. But of course, you guys can already see it coming. When you have a book where somebody's going to infiltrate the enemy and they're going to make friends and they're going to start wondering who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, especially in this book. So many great characters, so many great superhero powers. I was impressed with Marissa Meyer's ability to come up with so many different kind of superheroes. And at first I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep these guys straight. Look what she did. It's so nice. She put the cast of characters in the front of the books with each one so you would remember who was who and what power they had. So the first time I read it, I really was going back and double checking, but once you're done with the first book, you pretty much remember who everybody is. But like I said, such a great ride. And somebody else put this on their best books of 2019 and said, and she's left it open that she could go back into this world. And I started thinking back to the epilogue and I was like, she did, didn't she? I do happen to know that's not what her next book is. I'm going to be talking about Marissa Meyer's next book that does come out this year, at the end of this year, in my anticipated releases. But I would love it at some point if she would go back into this world because I love it so much. Enjoy these books. Cannot tell you how much I enjoyed these books. I just loved them, loved them, loved them. And I think you'll love them too. Now, the next book should be of no surprise to so many of you because I went on and on about it, and that would be The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, but I absolutely adore that movie. And this book is a prequel to Practical Magic. Now, Practical Magic was also a book, but I didn't get a chance to read that because I think I've told you guys I don't like to read books if I've already seen the movie or a TV series because I don't like to read books if I already know what's going to happen. So in the movie Practical Magic, we deal with two sisters who are being raised by their older aunts, Franny and Jet. But in this book, we are learning about Franny and Jet's childhood along with their brother Vincent, and they are being raised in the 1960s in New York City. Now, their mother has pretty much rejected the whole magical side of the family, doesn't really want to have anything to do with magic. So these kids kind of figure out on their own that they've got some powers. And I think I said before, if you've got magical powers, eventually you're going to start to notice. And while I loved the magic in this book, it definitely made it special. If you've seen the movie Practical Magic, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Even though there is magic for sure, what makes the movie or makes these stories so great is it's more a story about family and what you will do for your family and the bond between sisters. That's really what is the heart of this book. And if you've also seen Practical Magic, you might have remembered, or you might not, but don't worry because I'm telling you now. This family is also dealing with a curse. There's been a curse on their family since like the 1600s. One of their ancestors had her heart broken, and in a moment of impulse and not thinking, she said, put some kind of curse out there on her own family that if they were to fall deeply in love, the person would die. And in her way, she thought she was protecting them from being hurt because whoever she loved hurt her badly. So she thought, oh, I'll just take them out. If they start to fall in love, I'll just take that person out. And obviously that is not a good thing, and that's very hard. But like I said, this was such a great book, heartwarming book, a book about families being there for each other and with a touch of magic. So wonderful. Can't say enough. Loved it, loved it, loved it. All right, let's totally switch gears. And the next book is Dark Matter, which has been showing up on so many best of lists, which is no surprise because this book is so amazing. This is a sci-fi thriller, and boy, does this keep you on your toes. Our main character is Jason. He's a college physics professor who gets kidnapped one night. He can't see who's kidnapping him, but the guy keeps asking him, are you happy with your life? And we start to learn about the concept of multiple universes, the idea that every time you make a major decision that the universe kind of splits off. So if you're deciding whether to, go on a date with a certain person, in this universe or in this world or the way they describe it, you do go on that date and you don't go on that date. So a universe is created where you go on the date and maybe that ends up being the man you marry or the woman you marry or whatever, or you don't go on that date and you end up with somebody else. Or even smaller decisions, like, I'm going to eat this fish for dinner. Well, you're going to have two universes. One, you eat the fish for dinner and get food poisoning and you end up meeting somebody. And then the other one, you don't eat the fish and then you end up meeting somebody and you're just crazy. I mean, it really just, an unlimited amount of universes. I'm not talking about 2 or 3 universes. I'm talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of maybe even millions of universes where you are in every one and you've created so many universes with all these different choices you have made. And this is one of those when you read it, your mind is just blown. After you read it, you're just like, whoa, my head hurts from thinking so much. But it is such a wild ride. Highly, highly, highly recommended along with so many other booktubers. There's a reason why you're seeing this book on so many people's lists. All right, the next book is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. This book really was one of those books that after I read it, I was just like, oh my gosh, that is just so crazy, but in a good way, a good crazy. The main character in this book is Louise, and she ends up going to a bar and she ends up kissing a guy, just kissing him. And then later, I don't know if it's the next day or the next week, she finds out that it's her boss that she kissed, which is a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But then she finds out that he's married and she ends up becoming friends with the wife. And you think you know where it's going, but no, you have no clue where it's going. In fact, in the book, it actually says in the synopsis, and if you think you know where the story is going, think again, because Behind Her Eyes is like no other book you've read before. And that was absolutely true. This is like no other book I've ever read before. Talking about twisty into, places and situations that you would never in a million years guess. And I did this in a book haul and I had so many people say, when you're done with that, I want to know what you thought about it. And I'm thinking, that's weird. Why is this book getting so much attention? I got it like at Barnes & Noble on a discount aisle. It's not a really long book. If you look, it's not really that exciting of a cover. It's all black and white. I'm thinking, what's the big deal about this book? This book deserves a better cover. I'm just going to say it. I would really like to see this book in a better cover because the story does not match the cover. I would never expect a story this crazy and mind-blowing to come from such a boring cover. And if you're sitting there going, oh, I like the cover, I strongly disagree. I just think this book, when you pick it up, you're not thinking, this book is going to just blow my mind. So I vote for a new cover. All right, now let's get to my favorite YA high fantasy book of the year, and that would be Spin the Dawn. And boy, does it. Now this book has a cover to match the story. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous cover, and it is an awesome, gorgeous, I guess you could call a story gorgeous. Can a story be gorgeous? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. This had a gorgeous story as well. And I found out that this is going to be a duology, and I will be talking about the second book also when I do my anticipated releases video, but we're not going to talk about that right now. In this book, our main character is Maya. She's a gifted seamstress, but her father is like a renowned tailor, but he's quite old, and there's a war going on, and she had 3 brothers. 2 brothers were killed in action, and then one has come home and is very badly injured. But somebody from the palace comes to their door and basically demands that her father come to the palace because they're trying to find a new imperial tailor, and they're trying to find the best tailors to kind of compete for that position. And so she ends up dressing up as a boy and saying, I'm his son, so that she can keep her father from going. And she goes into this competition. And I think I've told you guys before, oh, how I love books that have some kind of competition in it. I mean, even books like The Hunger Games, even stuff like that. I just love competition books. And this book really is kind of like a 2-act book. We have the first act where we're in this competition. Of course, there's sabotage and there's all kinds of things going on. And then there's the second part of the book. And in the second part of the book, we have Maya who's traveling all over this land trying to find these magical items so that she can make these fantastical magical gowns. And the journey she takes and the items she has to get, I mean, it was just a beautiful story. I loved it so much. I am so excited about the sequel. I will definitely be pre-ordering it, and I highly recommend it. All right, let's switch gears again. I really like to mix up books when I'm showing them, so you kind of go from one genre to another, so you're really going from completely different books. So a very different book, but also another great book that you should read is Whisper Network by Chandler Baker, yet another Reese Witherspoon book club book. I would say this is kind of part murder mystery, part contemporary. We have 3 main characters, Sloane, Artie, and Grace, who have worked for the same company for a very long time, and they're very close friends. But all of them have secrets, and the secrets are specific, like secrets about things they really regret. Meanwhile, the CEO of the company, who's a man that they really think is a good CEO, they think he's a good man, dies unexpectedly, and all of a sudden a man who they don't think is a good guy and they do not think treats women well is kind of primed to take the position of CEO, and they really do not want that to happen, especially since at the same time they're noticing that they think he might be targeting a new young female employee, and they're kind of trying to help her and see what's going on, and try to not save her. He's not like horrible, but he's bad enough. He's bad enough you don't want to mess your CEO. And so they decide that they are going to definitely do whatever it takes to stop this man from being the CEO. And as they kind of start this process, all kinds of secrets from so many people start coming out. We have so many characters in this. Is definitely an ensemble cast. Like if they were to make this into a movie, they'd have to have an ensemble cast. So many different characters and so many different people tied together that you wouldn't think were tied, but they're tied in strange ways. And just a really great book. And I think he even mentions that this would definitely be, if they had a Me Too movement book list, this should definitely be on it. And I agree. This is definitely a woman's book and about women and being empowered and not taking, being mistreated. So I definitely recommend this book. And not just because of all that, it's just really also just really good and entertaining. All right, before I show you the next book, I wanted to point out my beautiful little statue. I guess you would call it a statue. I'm not sure what you would call it exactly. My mother got this for me for Christmas. She is my biggest YouTube fan. I think she's probably the only person who actually watches every single video that I do, and I think that's beautiful. I forget what these are called, this specific sculpture, but I have a few others in my curio cabinet. But she was like, no, I want this to be in your videos, on your shelf. So that is why I have this beautiful girl sitting there. She also got me the shirt that I'm wearing. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it very well, but it says, once upon a time, there was a girl who really loved books. It was me, the end. So, thank you, Mom. Shout out to my mom. All right, and back to the countdown. Not that we're doing a countdown, but I've always wanted to say that. All right, our next book is another young adult high fantasy. I didn't like it as much as Spin the Dawn, but it was right on up there. And that would be Ship of Smoke and Steel by Django Wexler. Okay, in this one, our main character is Ahsoka, who is adept. And an adept is a person who can control one of the 9 magic wells of sorcery in this world. And the one that she can control is combat. And in this world, there's this huge, massive, mysterious ship that goes from port to port. Nobody knows who's even steering or driving this ship, but it is known that each port has to kind of sacrifice one of their adepts when it comes to port, or something horrible will happen, like your whole town will burn down or all the children will die. Just horrible things happen. And they didn't go into a lot of detail about how they knew that exactly, but this, I believe, is going to be a duology, and I think they'll probably go into a little bit more detail in that. But anyway, Ahsoka is the one who is chosen to go and kind of be the sacrifice. Now, when I say sacrifice, I don't mean she's going to be killed. She's just the one who has to go to the mysterious ship. Nobody knows what's going to happen once she gets there. She doesn't know if, she gets on the ship and they're going to be like, hey, we're going to kill you. Or, she's going to flourish and thrive. She has no idea what she's getting into. And to make the situation just a little bit more stressful, just a little bit, her government lets her know, we would like you to figure out this ship. We'd like you to take over and steer this ship, really, take command of this ship. Bring it on back to us, because we're pretty sure that we're going to be going to war pretty soon, and we think this magical ship might be what, helps us win the war. And if you don't succeed in doing that, we're going to kill your little sister. Isn't that horrible? So she's very, very motivated. Luckily, she is an adept in combat. But this ship, I don't want to tell you too much, because that was what I thought was so exciting, is this mysterious ship, and when she gets there, figuring out what is going on. But this ship is huge. It has things you would never imagine. One of the things, it's got all kinds of scary creatures she has to fight. And of course, just the continuing mystery of trying to figure out who's behind it all. I just really liked this book. It had LGBTQ representation, and I just really love this book. And I think a lot of you would love it too. And that's all I gotta say. All right, sticking with YA, but switching genres. The next one is One of Us is Lying, and this is a YA, but it's a mystery thriller. This is a cross between The Breakfast Club and a murder mystery. If they had turned The Breakfast Club into a murder mystery, ta-da, you would have this book. You've got 5 kids who've got to go to after-school detention who all fit one of the typical high school stereotypes. You've got the brain, the beauty, the criminal, the athlete, and the outcast. And one of them ends up dying during detention. And the whole book is about figuring out who done it. And it's told by all 4 perspectives of the other ones, the ones that did not get killed. And it was a fun ride. I really thought the resolution, or the reveal as we call it, was really good. Oh, and I already have the sequel in hand. You are going to see that in my mostly YA book haul, which is the next video I'm going to be doing that I'm super excited about. It's probably going to have about 40 books, so look for that. All right, we're getting down to the last 2 books. Are you still with me? All right, the next book that I put on this list is The House of Salt and Sorrows. This has become a very popular book on BookTube, but what is so interesting is I actually got an ARC of this at BookCon, and when I read it, I had never heard of it. I had no idea what it was about. I had no expectations. At the time, there was no hype about it. Yeah, got to go into it completely blind, decided to read the first chapter just to get a feel for it, and a book is good when you go in just to read the first chapter, and the next thing you know, you're like this much into it, and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I on page 188? What happened? Our main character is Anna Lee. She is one of 12 sisters who lives with her father and stepmother at this manor by the sea, and 4 out of the 12 girls have died tragically, and there's even like rumors around their town that their family is cursed. And Anna Lee, especially with the sister who is the most recent one to pass away, is pretty sure she was murdered or something is up, and she's kind of trying to solve the mystery of what happened to that specific sister. But meanwhile, while she's investigating, we also have these like magical portals opening up that whisk away all the rest of the girls in the evening to these beautiful glittering balls where they're decked out in these gorgeous gowns and meet these fabulous people and eat this fabulous food. And she goes and she enjoys it, and she's definitely, kind of enchanted, but she's also trying to figure out that as well. So we have the dying sisters, we have these magical parties, and her trying to figure the whole thing out. And I really enjoyed it. Highly, highly recommend it. All right, and we're down to the last book. That does not mean that this is the best book. Like I said earlier, I probably think the best book / books for me this year was Discovering the Diviners. But this one is also really great, and you should definitely read it. And it is also an ARC that I got at BookCon, and that is Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. You can now get this as an actual beautiful book. Our main character in this book is Isabel. She is one of Cinderella's stepsisters, and this book pretty much takes place right after Cinderella is whisked away to the castle to her happily ever after. And Isabel is a really great character because she's not beautiful like Cinderella, and she's not, you know, quiet and demure and I'm going to whistle while I work. You know, she's the kind of person, she's going to stand up for herself if someone's, you know, mistreating her. She's going to speak her mind. Growing up, you know, she was a tomboy, and it really kind of digs at some of the stereotypes that I didn't even realize till I read this book of, you know, we're exposing little girls to so many fairy tales that it talks about, you know, the beautiful girl who's quiet and never sticks up for herself. She's going to, you know, go far. But the girl who's not so pretty and, you know, does stand up for herself and speaks her mind, oh, well, you know, she's a bad person and, you know, bad things are going to happen to her. And as I was reading this, I was like, wow, I didn't even see that. So this really opened my mind to that. Isabella, now don't get me wrong, she has been mean to Cinderella, and there's no doubt she's been mean to Cinderella. But she's been mean to Cinderella because she was so jealous of her, because her whole life, all she heard about was how beautiful she was. And she would hear, you know, overhear adults, you know, talking about how beautiful Cinderella was and how her and her sister were, you know, ugly. And, you know, how sweet she was, and, you know, how she had a big mouth. And, you know, but in this book, she gets to redeem herself and kind of find herself. And it was just set up beautifully. The way the story unfolded was great. There are no really good guys or bad guys. I mean, this is not a book where they're going to make Cinderella out to be the bad guy. Both Cinderella and the stepsisters and everybody in this story has good sides and bad sides. And, you know, they're kind of deeper characters. We dig a little deeper with these characters and see, you know, all of their sides. And I just thought this was a fabulous book with a fabulous message. And I think most people would really like it, so check it out. All right, so the next video I have coming out is going to be a mostly YA book haul with about 40 books. I'm going to be exhausted, but I'm going to film it in sections. And that will be coming, and I think right after that I'll be doing my anticipated releases. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.